The stars looked different from this far out. Captain Diane Miller stood on the bridge of the ESS Valiant, watching the unfamiliar patterns through the main viewport. Humanity had come so far in just a few decades. Mars colonies, the Europa Research Station, even settlements on exoplanets within 20 light-years of Earth. But this mission would take them farther than any human had gone before. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," said Lieutenant Frank Rogers from his communication station. "The Zyraxian representatives should be here within the hour." Miller nodded. "Status report." "Our escort ships are in position," replied Officer Katie Dias from Tactical. "The ESS Horizon and ESS Pathfinder are maintaining formation." Miller felt a mix of pride and concern as she thought about their small diplomatic fleet. 3 ships. Just 3 ships to represent all of humanity in this first formal meeting with the Zyraxian Confederation. The reports described them as a vast alliance of alien civilizations spanning hundreds of star systems. "Captain," Frank called out suddenly, his voice tight, "I'm picking up some strange transmissions between Zyraxian vessels. They don't realize we can translate portions of their language yet." Miller moved to his station. "What are they saying?" Frank adjusted his headset. "It's fragmented, but they're discussing our ships. They seem amused. One called us space-faring infants. Another mentioned something about easy conquest." Before Miller could respond, the main view screen lit up. A massive ship appeared, dwarfing the Valiant. It was followed by 10 more vessels of similar size, their hulls covered in what looked like weapon ports. "That's not a diplomatic escort," whispered Chief Science Officer Alan Carter. "Those are warships." The view screen flickered again, revealing a tall, scaled alien with 4 arms and yellow eyes. "I am Admiral Krazak of the Zyraxian Confederation. You will now be addressed by our Supreme Commander." The image changed to show an even larger Zyraxian wearing ornate armor. "Humans of Earth," the alien began, "we have observed your development with interest. Your species has shown remarkable determination in reaching the stars despite your obvious technological shortcomings." Miller stepped forward. "Supreme Commander, we come in peace, hoping to establish friendly relations between our peoples." The alien made a sound like rocks grinding together, perhaps laughter. "Peace. Relations. You misunderstand your position. We do not form relations with primitive species. We offer you a choice. Submit to Zyraxian authority and serve the Confederation, or face elimination." Miller kept her face neutral despite her shock. "Surely we can discuss terms that benefit both our peoples." The Supreme Commander's yellow eyes narrowed. "There is nothing to discuss. Your species controls 3 planets and a handful of moons. Your fleet is tiny and poorly armed. Did you think those 3 little ships would impress us?" From the science station, Carter called out, "Captain, I'm getting strange energy readings from their vessels. Something doesn't match their visible technology." The Supreme Commander continued, "We have conquered species far more advanced than yours. The Zyraxian Confederation spans 312 star systems and commands over 2,000 warships. Your entire fleet would not equal the firepower of even one of our smaller vessels." Miller tried again. "We may be fewer in number, but humanity has much to offer through peaceful exchange." "Enough." The Supreme Commander cut her off. "Your answer, Captain. Submission or resistance?" Miller stood tall. "Humanity will never submit to threats. We—" The transmission cut off abruptly as the ship rocked violently. "They're firing on us." Diaz shouted. "The Pathfinder is hit badly." Another explosion shook the Valiant. Miller grabbed her command chair to stay upright. "The horizon is gone," reported Diaz, her voice breaking. "Direct hit. No survivors." Miller watched in horror as the Pathfinder exploded in a burst of light and debris. Within seconds, their diplomatic mission had become a massacre. "Get us out of here," Miller ordered. "Maximum speed back to Earth. We need to warn them." As the damaged Valiant limped away under emergency power, Miller stared at the view screen showing the massive Zyraxian fleet. They had mocked humanity's small fleet, dismissing Earth as an easy conquest. They would learn their mistakes soon enough. 2 weeks after the attack, Captain Diane Miller stood before the United Earth Defense Council in their underground chamber beneath New Geneva. Her uniform was still crisp despite the bandage visible on her neck. The HFY Valiant had limped home with severe damage and many injured crew. "And that concludes my report," Miller said, her voice steady despite the painful memories. "The Xeraxians destroyed the Pathfinder and Horizon without warning. They made it clear they want submission or they'll destroy us." Admiral Samantha Wright, head of Earth's defense forces, leaned forward. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her face creased with worry lines. "Thank you, Captain. Your crew showed remarkable courage." She turned to the rest of the council. "Ladies and gentlemen, we faced the greatest threat in human history." The large screen behind her lit up with a star map. "Intelligence Officer Johnson, please brief the council." Peter Johnson stood up. He was a thin man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The Xeraxian Confederation controls over 300 star systems. They've conquered 7 other species that we know of." He showed images of different alien races. All serve as workers or soldiers for the Xeraxians. "How big is their fleet?" asked Councillor Martinez, an older woman who represented the Mars colonies. "Our best estimate is at least 2,000 warships," Johnson replied, "each one larger than our biggest vessels." The room fell silent as the reality sank in. "And our fleet?" asked another counselor. Military strategist William Garcia stood up. "We have 47 deep space vessels total. Even with the ships currently under construction, we'll have fewer than 60 within the next 6 months." Captain Miller watched faces fall around the table. The numbers were devastating. "Perhaps we should consider their terms," suggested Councillor Pottle. "At least to buy time." "No," Miller said firmly. "I saw their faces. The Xeraxians don't want allies. They want slaves. Any surrender would just make conquest easier." Admiral Wright nodded. "Captain Miller is right. We've intercepted communications suggesting their fleet is already preparing to move toward our solar system." "So we're doomed," said Martinez, her voice hollow. "Not necessarily." All heads turned toward the new speaker. Dr. Lisa Bell stood up from her seat at the end of the table. The head of research and development rarely spoke at these meetings. "I've been working on something that might help," she said, pushing her glasses up. "It's called quantum field manipulation." She walked to the front of the room and brought up diagrams on the main screen. "For years, we've been building bigger ships with bigger weapons, following the same path as other species. But what if there's another approach?" Bell showed a simulation of small objects disappearing and reappearing. "My team has developed technology that can temporarily shift objects partially out of normal space-time. In simple terms, we can hide large numbers of small ships until the moment they're needed." Garcia frowned. "Small ships can't match their firepower." "Not individually," Bell agreed. "But imagine thousands of smaller vessels appearing all at once, surrounding an enemy that expected only a few dozen targets." Miller felt a spark of hope for the first time. "Swarm tactics, like wasps attacking a larger predator." "Exactly," Bell said with a smile. "The Xeraxians build massive warships because that's their approach to war. They'll never expect what I'm proposing." "Has this technology been tested?" Wright asked. Bell's smile faded. "Not at the scale we'd need. It would require refitting our entire fleet with quantum generators. Every ship would become a control hub for hundreds of drone vessels." "How long would this take?" Wright looked concerned. 3 months, minimum. We'd need to use every resource we have." The council broke into urgent whispers. Admiral Wright silenced them with a raised hand. "We need to vote. Do we attempt surrender, or do we implement Dr. Bell's plan?" Captain Miller stood again. "The Xeraxians mocked our tiny fleet. Let's show them how wrong they were." One by one, the council members voted. The decision was made. Operation Checkmate would begin immediately. The shipyard orbiting Mars buzzed with activity. For 6 weeks straight, every engineer, mechanic, and technician in the solar system had been working around the clock. Ships that once carried settlers to new homes now housed manufacturing equipment. Mining vessels stripped asteroids bare for raw materials. Chief Engineer Henry Wallace wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the diagrams. At 52, he had helped build many of Earth's vessels, but nothing like this. "You're asking the impossible, Doc," he told Dr. Bell, who stood beside him in the cramped workshop of the ESS Valiant. The ship was still under repair, but its main systems were back online. "Not impossible," Bell replied. She pointed to a glowing blue device the size of a small car. "Just very, very difficult." Wallace shook his head. "These quantum field generators were designed for lab tests, not combat. You want to put them on every ship we have, and link them together to control thousands of drone ships," Bell added. "Yes. The power requirements alone have been solved," Bell interrupted. "Look at the new designs." Wallace studied the updated schematics and whistled softly. "I've never seen configurations like this." "That's the point," Bell said. "Neither have the Xeraxians." In another part of the ship, Captain Miller and Admiral Wright reviewed battle plans. "It looks like we're surrendering," Miller said, examining the holographic display showing Earth's fleet in a tight defensive formation around the planet. Wright nodded. "That's what we want them to think. They'll expect us to protect Earth at all costs. When they move in to attack, they'll be in perfect position for our trap." "If it works," Miller said quietly. Wright's face was grim. "It has to work." 3 decks below, training sessions were underway. Crew members practiced controlling multiple drone ships through new neural interfaces. "Again," ordered Officer Dias. "You need to manage at least 20 drones each." The tired crew members adjusted their headsets and tried once more. On their screens, simulated drone ships moved in coordinated patterns around larger enemy vessels. "I can't keep track of so many at once," complained a young pilot. "Then we all die," Dias said bluntly. "So try harder." Throughout the solar system, similar scenes played out. Factories on Earth's moon produced thousands of small drone ships, each barely larger than an old-style fighter jet, but packed with advanced weapons and minimal shielding. On Europa, scientists worked to improve the quantum field stability. Early tests had shown dangerous fluctuations. The field collapsed after only 30 seconds, reported a tired lab technician. Dr. Bell's face appeared on the view screen, looking equally exhausted. "Adjust the frequency modulation. We need at least 10 minutes of stability." Back on Earth, evacuation plans moved forward quietly. Key scientists and government officials were relocated to hidden bases on distant moons and asteroids. Civilian ships practiced emergency launch procedures without causing panic. On the 63rd day of preparations, Wallace called an emergency meeting. "The quantum generators are failing at a rate of 60%. We're running out of time and materials," he told the grim-faced leaders. "We need at least 2 more weeks." Admiral Wright shook her head. "We don't have 2 weeks. Our long-range sensors detected Xeraxian scout ships entering the Kuiper Belt yesterday." The room fell silent. "Then we work faster," Bell said firmly. "I'll move my team to your ship, Wallace. We'll solve the stability issues together." 3 days later, Bell burst into Miller's quarters, her eyes wild with excitement, despite not having slept in nearly 2 days. "We did it. We found the solution in the phase alignment. The generators are holding stable in all tests." Miller looked up from her battle plans. Just in time. The main Xeraxian fleet was spotted near Neptune's orbit an hour ago. Bell's excitement faded. "How many ships?" 327. All heading straight for Earth. Bell took a deep breath. "Then it's time to spring our trap." All across the solar system, humanity's tiny fleet moved into position, each vessel carrying the hopes of the entire species. Space near Earth grew quiet as the remaining 40 human ships formed a defensive ring around the planet. From the bridge of the ESS Valiant, Captain Miller watched the formation take shape. The ships looked small and fragile against the vastness of space. "All vessels report ready, Captain," said Lieutenant Frank Rogers from Communications. Miller nodded. "And the quantum generators?" "Operating within normal parameters," replied Dr. Bell from her station. Dark circles under her eyes showed how little she had slept in the past week. "Long-range sensors detecting multiple warp signatures," announced Officer Dias. "They're coming." The main view screen lit up with hundreds of red dots approaching Earth. The Ziraxian Armada had arrived. 327 ships confirmed, Dias reported, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds they faced. Admiral Wright's face appeared on a side screen. "All ships maintain position. Remember your training. Wait for my signal." The bridge crew watched as the massive alien fleet spread out in an attack formation. Each Ziraxian vessel was at least 5 times larger than Earth's biggest ship. Their dark hulls glittered with weapon ports. Communications Officer Nancy Chen suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Ziraxian command ship." Miller took a deep breath. On screen, the image of Supreme Commander Draz Kor filled the view screen. His yellow eyes gleamed with confidence. "Humans of Earth," he began, his voice deep and menacing. "Your time has come. My scouts report that you have gathered your entire pathetic fleet to defend your home world." He made that grinding sound that passed for laughter. "How brave. How foolish." Miller said nothing, letting the alien continue. "I am not without mercy," Draz Kor said. "Surrender now, and I will allow your species to live as servants of the Confederation. Your technology and resources will serve a greater purpose than your primitive civilization could achieve." Miller glanced at Dr. Bell, who nodded slightly. "Supreme Commander," Miller replied, her voice calm. "Humanity respectfully declines your offer." Draz Kor's face showed surprise, then amusement. "You choose extinction. Very well. It will be quick." The transmission ended. "They're moving into attack position," reported Dias. "Weapons powering up across their fleet." On a private channel, Nancy Chen spoke quietly. "Captain, I'm intercepting their tactical communications. They're laughing about our tiny ships and betting on how quickly we'll be destroyed." Miller allowed herself a small smile. "Let them laugh." The Ziraxian fleet advanced with confidence, their massive ships forming a half-circle that would soon envelop Earth's defenders. "All ships, prepare for Phase 1. Admiral Wright ordered over the secure channel. Captain Miller, the Valiant will lead." "Understood," Miller replied. She turned to her crew. "Battle stations. Prepare for combat." Warning lights flashed as the ship's weapons came online. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, their months of training evident in every action. "Ziraxian fleet is in optimal position," Dias announced. "Range, 300,000 kilometers and closing." Dr. Bell monitored her console closely. "Quantum field generators at full capacity. Ready on your command." Miller watched the enemy ships grow larger on the view screen. The biggest one, Draz Kor's command ship, led the formation, its weapons clearly targeted on the Valiant. "They're within range," Dias reported. "They're firing." Bright energy beams lanced out from the lead Ziraxian ships. "Now," Miller ordered. Dr. Bell activated her console. Quantum field generators engaging. Across the human fleet, blue energy fields flared to life. The first Ziraxian weapons fire struck these fields and seemed to vanish. Admiral Wright's voice came through clearly. "All ships, execute Operation Checkmate." Miller looked at the approaching enemy fleet, still confident in their overwhelming numbers and firepower, still believing they faced only 40 small human ships. "Time to show them what humanity's tiny fleet really means," she said. "Activate the drone swarms." Dr. Bell pressed the final command sequence. Quantum field collapse in 3, 2, 1. The space around Earth suddenly filled with light as thousands of hidden vessels emerged from their quantum displacement. The trap was sprung. Supreme Commander Drazkor stood confidently on the bridge of his massive flagship. The humans' refusal to surrender was puzzling but ultimately meaningless. Their tiny fleet would be destroyed within minutes. "Target their lead vessel," he ordered. "Show them the price of defiance." His weapons officer obeyed, and powerful energy beams shot toward the human ships. But instead of the expected explosions, strange blue fields appeared around the Earth vessels, absorbing the attack. "What is happening?" Drazkor demanded. Before anyone could answer, space itself seemed to ripple and shimmer around the human fleet. What happened next made the commander's forearms grip his control panel in shock. Where there had been only 40 small ships, thousands of smaller vessels suddenly appeared, filling the space around Earth like a swarm of angry insects. "Impossible," gasped his second-in-command. "Our scanners detected nothing." Aboard the ESS Valiant, Captain Miller watched the Ziraxians' confusion with grim satisfaction. "Drone swarms fully deployed," reported Dr. Bell. "Quantum field stability at 92%. We have approximately 9 minutes before we need to recharge." "That should be enough," Miller said. She opened a channel to all Earth vessels. "This is Captain Miller. Execute attack pattern Delta. All drone controllers, engage your targets." On the bridge and throughout the ship, crew members wearing neural interface headsets began directing their assigned drone ships. Each human controller managed 20 to 30 of the small, fast vessels. Together, the combined human fleet now controlled over 6,000 attack drones. In the engineering section, Chief Wallace explained to his team how the technology worked. "While the Ziraxians built bigger and bigger ships, we went the opposite way," he said, watching the battle unfold on his monitor. "Our drones are small, fast, and nearly impossible to target effectively. And their weapons are designed to fight other large ships, not swarms of small targets." The thousands of human drones moved with coordinated precision, surrounding Ziraxian vessels in three-dimensional attack patterns. Where the aliens expected to hit large, slow targets, they now faced clouds of small, nimble craft that their weapons couldn't track effectively. On the Ziraxian command ship, panic was setting in. Where did they come from? Drazkor roared. How did they hide so many vessels? His tactical officer struggled to answer. They must have been using some kind of cloaking technology we've never seen before. Recalibrate the weapons. Target those small ships, Drazkor ordered. But the Ziraxian weapons were designed for large-scale space combat. Their targeting systems couldn't lock onto the small, fast-moving drones. Their massive cannons fired into empty space as the drones dipped away. Back on Earth, Admiral Wright watched from her command center as data streamed in. The quantum field technology worked perfectly, she told her staff. The drones remained partially shifted out of normal spacetime until the field collapsed. The Ziraxians literally couldn't see them because they weren't fully present in our dimension. The tactical display showed the battle unfolding. The human drones swarmed around the larger enemy ships like bees attacking a bear. Individually, each drone carried only a fraction of the firepower of a Ziraxian warship, but their numbers and coordination made them devastating. "Look at their formation," Wright noted. "They're breaking apart, trying to deal with threats coming from all directions at once." The Ziraxian battle strategy relied on coordinated attacks from their massive warships. Now they found themselves surrounded, their formation shattered as each ship struggled to defend itself against dozens of small attackers. On the Ziraxian command ship, Drazkor received increasingly desperate reports. 3 destroyers lost in Section 4. Shield failures across the fleet. Our targeting systems can't lock onto their vessels. Drazkor slammed his fist on the command console. How? How did the humans hide such a massive fleet? His science officer finally provided an answer. "Commander, these aren't conventional ships. They appear to be automated drones, controlled remotely from their larger vessels." Drazkor's yellow eyes widened as understanding dawned. The humans hadn't built a fleet to match the Ziraxian ship for ship. They had created something entirely different, a swarm that turned their apparent weakness into an unexpected strength. And now, his mighty armada was in serious trouble. Captain Miller watched the battle unfold on the main view screen. The human drone swarms moved like schools of fish, flowing around the massive Zyraxian warships. Each drone was small and lightly armed, but their combined attacks targeted the same weak points simultaneously. Drone Group 7, focus on their engine sections, Miller ordered. Through her neural interface, she directly controlled 30 drones herself, leading them toward Drazkor's command ship. Throughout the Valiant, crew members sat with eyes half closed, their minds linked to their drone squadrons through the neural interfaces. Their hands moved slightly as they directed their attacks. Quantum field stability at 70% and dropping, reported Dr. Bell. We have about 5 minutes before the generators need to recharge. Miller nodded. We need to make them count. All ships pressed the attack. The human drones accelerated, moving even faster as they targeted specific systems on the Zyraxian vessels. Some drones carried powerful but short-range weapons, while others specialized in disabling enemy shields or weapons. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Wright directed the overall battle. Focus on their weapons first, then their engines. We don't need to destroy them all, just make them unable to fight. The screens showed Zyraxian ships firing wildly, their massive weapons designed to hit large targets now mostly missing the small, agile drones. When they did hit, a drone would explode in a small flash. But there were always more to take its place. On the Zyraxian command ship, Supreme Commander Drazkor faced a situation he had never imagined possible. 35 ships heavily damaged, reported his tactical officer, weapons systems failing across the fleet. Order all ships to focus fire on their control vessels, Drazkor commanded. The drones must be controlled from the larger human ships. The Zyraxian fleet tried to reorganize, focusing their attacks on the 40 human ships. Several energy beams struck the human vessel Phoenix, causing it to explode. On the Valiant, Officer Dias reported grimly, "We've lost the Phoenix and the Orion." Miller felt a pang of loss but kept her focus. Transfer their drone control to backup crews. Dr. Bell worked quickly at her station. Done. Minimal disruption to the attack patterns. Even as the human ships took damage, the drone swarms continued their relentless assault. The Zyraxian fleet's coordination was breaking down as ships lost communication systems and engines. Chief Engineer Wallace's voice came over the comm. "Captain, I found a way to extend the quantum field stability by another 3 minutes, but it's risky." "Do it," Miller ordered without hesitation. On the engineering deck, Wallace made the adjustments, his hand steady despite the danger. "Redirecting power from life support reserves. We'll have enough air for several hours." The battle continued to shift in humanity's favor. More Zyraxian ships lost power or weapons capability as the drone swarms targeted critical systems. "Multiple Zyraxian vessels attempting to retreat," reported Dias. "They're trying to engage faster than light drives." "Drone groups 12 through 20 target their FTL engines," Miller ordered. "Don't let them escape." The drones moved to intercept, firing precision weapons that disabled the Zyraxian escape capability. In the center of the battle, Miller's personal drone squadron had reached Drazkor's command ship. "I'm taking a boarding team to capture Drazkor," she announced. "Lieutenant Rogers, you have the bridge." Dr. Bell looked up in alarm. "Captain, that's extremely dangerous." "And necessary," Miller replied. "We need their commander alive to end this properly." Miller gathered a small team of Marines and headed for the shuttle bay. Their modified shuttle could navigate through the chaotic battlefield to reach the Zyraxian command ship. As they launched, Miller watched through her neural interface as her drones created a path through the Zyraxian defenses, targeting weapons that might threaten her approach. The shuttle accelerated toward the massive alien flagship, which now hung partially disabled in space, its main weapons destroyed by the drone attacks. "Boarding team en route," Miller reported to Admiral Wright. "We're going to end this." Behind her shuttle, the space around Earth was filled with the remains of once mighty Zyraxian warships, now powerless and adrift, defeated by the fleet they had mocked as tiny and insignificant. The shuttle docked with the Xerexian command ship with a metallic clang. Captain Miller led her team of 6 Marines through the airlock, weapons ready. The alien vessel's interior was vast, with high ceilings and wide corridors designed for the larger Xerexian bodies. "Life signs show most crew gathered on the bridge," said Sergeant Kim, checking her scanner. Miller nodded. "That's where we'll find Drazkor." They moved quickly through the ship, encountering only light resistance. Most of the Xerexian crew were busy trying to repair critical systems damaged by the drone attacks. On the bridge of the ESS Valiant, Lieutenant Rogers monitored the boarding team's progress. "Captain's team has reached Deck 7, he reported to Admiral Wright, approaching the command center. Dr. Bell checked her readings. "Quantum field stability at 15%. Drones will begin shutting down in 2 minutes." Wright's voice came through clearly. "They need to secure Drazkor before we lose the advantage. All functioning drones, concentrate on holding the remaining Xerexian ships in position." On the Xerexian flagship, Miller's team reached the massive doors leading to the bridge. 2 large Xerexian guards stood ready, their weapons aimed. "Let me handle this," Miller said. She stepped forward. "I am Captain Diane Miller of Earth. I'm here to speak with Supreme Commander Drazkor." The guards hesitated, then one pressed a control. The huge doors slid open. The Xerexian command bridge was 3 times the size of the Valiant's. Drazkor stood at its center, his yellow eyes fixed on Miller as she entered. "You have courage, human, coming here," he said. "But your little trick with the hidden ships won't save you. The rest of our fleet will arrive within days." Miller met his gaze steadily. "There won't be any need for that. This war is over." Drazkor made the grinding sound of his laughter. "Over? You've damaged some ships, yes. But the Xerexian Confederation spans hundreds of worlds. You cannot hope to." "Look at your battle display," Miller interrupted. "Your command ship is crippled. Half your fleet is disabled. The rest can't escape." She stepped closer. "We could destroy every ship here, but that's not what we want." Drazkor studied her with new interest. "What do you want, human?" "Peace," Miller said simply, "but not as your slaves. As equals." The alien commander was silent for a long moment. Finally, he asked, "How did you do this? How did you hide so many ships?" "We didn't build bigger ships like everyone else," Miller explained. "We saw our small fleet as an opportunity, not a weakness. While you built giant warships, we created technology to use space itself as an advantage." Before Drazkor could respond, a junior Xerexian officer approached nervously. "Supreme Commander, we're receiving transmissions from the Tellarite and Vexari ships in our fleet." "What do they want?" Drazkor demanded. They're asking about surrender terms. They say they no longer wish to fight for the Confederation." Drazkor's eyes widened. The Tellarites and Vexari were 2 of the species conquered by the Xerexians years ago. "Your empire is already beginning to crack," Miller observed. "How many of your allies are really just waiting for a chance to break free?" On the Valiant, Dr. Bell watched the quantum field generators finally shut down. The remaining drones would now operate on their own power until recalled, but they had done their job. The Xerexian fleet was defeated. Admiral Wright opened communications with all human ships. "Well done, everyone. The boarding team has secured the Xerexian command center." 3 days later, Captain Miller and Admiral Wright stood in the United Earth Defense Council chamber. The large screen showed representatives from 7 alien species, the former subjects of the Xerexian Confederation. "The peace terms have been accepted," Wright announced. "The Xerexians will withdraw from our sector of space, and we've gained new allies." A Tellarite representative spoke from the screen. "For generations, we believed the Xerexians were undefeatable because of their massive fleet. You showed us that innovation matters more than size." Later that evening, Miller found Dr. Bell on the observation deck of the newly repaired Valiant, looking out at the stars. "What will you work on next?" Miller asked. Bell smiled. "Communication technology. I think we have a lot to learn from our new friends out there." Miller nodded, gazing at the stars where just days before, a battle had raged. The Xerexians had mocked humanity's tiny fleet, never imagining it would lead to their downfall. Sometimes, the smallest things made the biggest difference.